Carrie, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.
And let me just say this from the outset, we're so grateful to have Judicial Crisis Network as the sponsor each night of this judicial panel.
Thanks. Well, you know, we couldn't have picked a better time to be talking about this. This issue is, we always knew that you know, whoever's elected in 2020 is going to have a vacancy. We didn't know that Donald Trump would already have another vacancy in his first term.
This, right? to borrow a word from the president, this is huge.
Yeah.
And let me say, tomorrow is a big day for the entire nation. Tell us what do you think will happen and how you think things will play out.
Well, we know the president's going to make his announcement tomorrow night. What we're hearing from a lot of sources now is that the choice is going to be Judge Amy Coney Barrett of the Seventh Circuit. That's really exciting. I think she's an incredible role model, you know, for me as a mother and a lawyer, to see all that she has accomplished in her life. She's a clerk to Justice Scalia, by many accounts one of his favorite clerks, right? And then her style and approach to the law really follows after his commitment to the law as it's written, the text, the originalism. That's what she did her scholarship on. She was 15 years a professor at Notre Dame, repeatedly won awards for her teaching. We've heard people talking about what a wonderful mentor she was to them, both to young men and women alike, and then now serving on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and we've seen some really bold decisions from her already in her time as a judge. I'm looking forward to many more in the next decades, yes, right, in the Supreme Court.
Well, Carrie, tell our viewers a little bit about her from a personal standpoint, because I think her personal story is very compelling and also gives us an insight into her character.
Yeah, so she is a mother of 7 children, right, and 2 of those children were adopted from Haiti. And it's also really interesting, she's told the story of how this happened. They had adopted one child. They thought maybe they were trying to work through another adoption. They didn't think they were going to be able to have any more children biologically. And then just as they learned that this adoption was finally going to go through, after they'd kind of resigned themselves, this just isn't God's will for us right now, that they were going to have adoption. And then she learned that against all odds, she was pregnant. And they had this moment, she had a moment of saying, wow, this is really big. But then she said later, she's praying about it, she goes, you know, there's nothing more important in my life than I could do than raise these children. And then went on to do so. One of her biological children also has Down syndrome. So she has been really living her life in an act of generosity and in kind of just showing, again, it's such a role model for young women. Justice Ginsburg was inspiring to many people in terms of what she overcame to get where she was. Even we may disagree with her jurisprudence, but you can still be impressed by what she accomplished. And I think Judge Barrett is someone who is similarly just an incredible path-breaking life. How many women have balanced that incredible act? And talking to people, they say she's not a part-time mother, she's a full-time mom, and yet still can accomplish so much.
Now, in her confirmation for the appellate court, she was attacked for her faith. Are you anticipating that we're going to see round 2 of that?
I unfortunately, we're already seeing that telegraphed. It's shocking because I think everyone who saw that moment when Senator Feinstein said to her, well, are you an Orthodox Catholic? And she's like, why, how are we asking this? I think the dogma lives loudly within you, right, and that's a concern. That really walks right up to the constitutional prohibition on religious tests for office. And yet the Democrats, the party of JFK, the party of Justice Ginsburg, who herself said her Jewish faith was really inspiring to her to seek justice in the law, is now, it seems to be going on an all-out attack on Christian faith, and she belongs to a charismatic prayer group that now they're trying to paint as a cult or something. This is really outrageous behavior, and I think Americans across the spectrum, I hope, will soundly reject that. That is absolutely has no place in our public discourse.
But it also reflects the battle that's focused on the court. I mean, the court itself is dealing with this issue of religious expression. So, I mean, it's reflective of where the culture is, and I'm not sure that the left can help themselves.
Yeah, and that used to be a bipartisan issue, right? When the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was passed, it was overwhelming bipartisan majorities. This should be an American value, and it's troubling to see one of the parties that doesn't, you know, that's really at war with that idea of religious freedom right now.
A couple of questions that have come in from our viewers, and actually several questions, but I want to go through just a couple of them. And this is one that I think is reflective of a lot of people, and this is why I asked you about her personally and her character, is that how can we be certain we don't fall for another bait and switch appointee, presenting themselves as a constitutionalist but letting down those who supported them by legislating from the bench? And I mean, that's a fear that we all have, but this is a different approach that this president is taking. If in fact it is Judge Barrett. This is a much different approach than we've seen in the past.
Absolutely. And she's someone who has, in her whole career up until this point, taken those moments of courage. That's something that Donald Trump said he wanted to see in his nominees, because he didn't want another, John Roberts, who maybe doesn't want to have the tough decision, Obamacare, things like that. Just going into legal academia as an originalist scholar, I thought about going into academia. I actually went a different direction because I had come to the conclusion you almost can't get hired if you acknowledge you're a conservative. And she that was a very bold move. She did that. She's the kind of person, I don't know if any Republican president before Trump would have nominated her to the bench, because she was so outspoken and clear. And then from the bench, she has taken difficult decisions in issues like the Second Amendment, in issues like abortion, on issues like civil rights for young men accused on campus of sexual abuse, and some of the things that are being done in the Me Too movement to kind of attack young men, that are hard to do politically, and yet she knew it was the right decision legally. That's what you want to see in a future judge.
So, Carrie, another question. The Democrats, this is part of the nothing's off the table from Chuck Schumer. They promised to stack the Supreme Court if they gain control of the Senate. What is the procedure to accomplish this, and do you think they'll do it?
Well, let's not kid ourselves. They've been promising to stack the Supreme Court for years, literally. So this is not, it's not something that's new. It's not, oh, well, maybe if we played softball with this nomination,
right.
They're going to do it if they have the opportunity. Here's what it would take. The Supreme Court isn't constitutionally limited to 9 justices. That number has changed, and that's set by statute. So what they would need is the ability to pass a statute. That means they'd have to have the House and the Senate and then the White House to sign it. Right now, that's hard to do because you have to have 60 votes to get to the Senate. But unfortunately, one of the other things they're floating is just getting rid of that threshold for legislation, which is maybe the only thing holding us back from a real pendulum swing when any different party changes course. So they're willing to overturn all these norms. Really, we're at a time when people are willing to literally burn the country down to make their point. They're willing to burn down all of these norms to create something that is so extreme. Even Justice Ginsburg, even Bernie Sanders says, no, don't go there. This would trigger a cycle of adding justices to the court that would be horrible for our country. And if they're to the left of Bernie Sanders and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you're in trouble, right?
Final question for you, Carrie Severino. People watching, concerned about this. Process is going to start here very soon. What can they do?
Well, first, I would encourage everyone to pray for Judge Barrett, if it is her or the nominee. Pray for everyone involved in the process. This is a serious battle on all fronts, right? And I think encourage your senators to be strong. And that's senators, if you've got a Republican or a Democrat, because I think when people start looking at her life, it's going to be hard for anyone to look at this incredibly accomplished and brilliant woman in the face and say, they don't deserve a seat on the Supreme Court. So we need to show President Trump our support for making bold choices like this. Make sure he knows, make sure your senator knows. Amy Coney Barrett, it really deserves to have a seat in the Supreme Court.
Carrie Severino, thanks so much.
Thank you.